Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Salamangreat deck profile. So this deck is a really insane, probably tier 2 contender nowadays, but still a really good contending deck to play around with, and probably one of the more budget decks that you can pick up to play competitively at a tournament of locals, regionals, or any kind of tournaments you're actually going to be playing around with. It's one of the more simplistic competitive decks because it has a couple of things that it does really well, which is really, really good for you if you're going to be playing around with Salamangreat. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down the description below because we got some awesome rewards, you guys, like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting a signed card sent mail, or even getting a twisted deck profile every single month that you're a patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing a single copy of Salamangreat Gazelle. So Salamangreat Gazelle is a really good card in this deck because if this card is, if a Salamangreat monster is sent to the graveyard, except Salamangreat Gazelle, then you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can send a Salamangreat card from your deck to the graveyard. Now, this card is actually limited, unfortunately, but hopefully in the next couple of lists, we might see it come back to 2, maybe, hopefully, Konami. We then play a single copy of Salamangreat Falco. Falco is pretty good, too, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, then you get to target one Salamangreat spell or trap in your graveyard, except another copy, or except a set target, or you set that target to the field, and if this card is in your graveyard, you get to target one Salamangreat monster you control, except another copy of itself, and return that monster to the hand, and if you do, you special summon this card from your graveyard. We then play a single copy of Salamangreat Jack Jaguar. This card is pretty good too, because if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflicts piercing, and you can control a Salamangreat Link monster. And then while this card's in your graveyard, you can target one of your Salamangreat, you can target one of your Salamangreat monsters in your graveyard, shuffle that target in the deck, and if you do, you special summon this card to zone a Salamangreat Link monster points to, which is really good just to help you kind of recycle some of your other Salamangreat cards. You play a single copy of Salamangreat Fowl. Fowl is pretty good because if this card, if you control a Salamangreat monster, is normal or special summoned, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and you only use its effect once per turn. Then you can send one Salamangreat card from your hand or your face up in your field to the graveyard to target a set spell or trap card your opponent controls, and that card cannot be activated this turn. We play 2 copies of Salamangreat Spinny. Salamangreat Spinny special summons itself from your graveyard to your side of the field, and if you control a Salamangreat monster, you can discard it from your hand to make that monster gain 500 attack, which is pretty good to be able to just do that, but it banishes itself when it leaves the field if you do special summon it, which is pretty good and pretty bad at the same time. We then play 2 copies of Salamangreat Foxy. I have bumped Foxy down to 2 because it's just really consistent at 2. You really don't need 3. It's kind of debatable if you need 3, but I bumped it down to 2. When this card is normal summon, you get to excavate the top 3 of your deck, and if you do, you get to add one of your excavated Salamangreat cards from your deck to your hand. You shuffle the rest back in the deck, and if this card's in your graveyard and a face-up spell and trap card is on the field, you get to discard a Salamangreat card, and then you special summon this card and destroy one face-up spell or trap on the field, which is really good to revive back your copy of your Foxy, but at the same time, you're having to pop a spell or trap. We then play a single copy of Salamangreat Mole. Mole is kind of like Pot of Avarice, which is why I play this card as a 1-of in this deck, because it has the ability that you can, during your main phase, if you link summon, you can special summon this card from your hand to zone a link monster points to, and if you control no monsters, you can manage this card from your graveyard to target 5 Salamangreat cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and if you do, you get to draw 2 cards, which is really good. I mean, that's a really good effect for this card, to be able to just let you draw 2 and shuffle back your copies of your Gazelle, your copies of your Fowl, Spinnies. Well, you don't want to shuffle Spinny, but your copies of your your copies of like Foxy and Fowl and stuff like that that you just want to draw again and draw 2. We then play 3 copies of Lady Debug. Lady Debug is really good in this deck too, because when she's normal summoned, you get to add a level 3 or lower Cyverse monster from your deck to your hand, which can be like your copy of your Gazelle or any of the monsters that are like Gazelle, Foxy, or Spinny, or Mole from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Flame Buffalo. This card is really good too, because if this card leaves the field, you can discard a Cyverse card to draw 2. So it helps you discard cards that you don't really need in your hand to the graveyard to be able to draw additional cards from your deck for consistency. Play a single copy of Backup Secretary. Backup Secretary is if you control a Cyverse monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only special summon her once per turn, but we only play 1, so you're only ever going to summon her once per turn. We then play 3 copies of Parallel Xyz. Parallel Xyz is a card that I really like as a 3 of in this deck because it helps you go into Abyss Dweller, and also it helps you Link Summon. Because if this card is special summoned by the effect of a Parallel Xyz, it becomes level 4, and if you Link Summon a card on your turn, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and then special summon another Parallel Xyz from your deck as a level 4 monster because it's special summoned by a Parallel Xyz effect. Both of them are special summoned by a Parallel Xyz effect, so they both become level 4. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom just to stop our opponent's hand trap, or stop our opponent's shenanigans against us, and 2 copies of Ghost Ogre as well. The Ghost Ogres come in handy because you can play Nibiru in this position if you want to. I like the Ghost Ogres for right now because it's dealing with Dragon Link very well, and it's dealing with stuff like Infernoble Knights because it's popping 1 card that they might really need. So I'm really liking playing the copies of Ghost Ogre as 2 ofs in my builds because this card is just really nice. But you can change it out if you want to play Nibiru if you want to, but I recommend the Ghost Ogres. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're playing our 1 of Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is really good because you need to stop your opponent's hand traps, and it's just really good at stopping those, so you play it as a 1 of. We play a single copy of Foolish Burial just to send our Salamangreat monsters from our deck to the graveyard, because a lot of them benefit off of being in the graveyard, like your copy of Gazelle benefits, your copy of your copy of Jack Jagger, your copy of Falco. They benefit off of being in the graveyard, so this copy of Foolish Burial is really good in this deck. 1 copy of Desires, because you can't Desires into a Desires if you only play 1 Desires. So you only play 1 Desires in my build. I don't like Desires at more than 1 in this build because you have too many cards, in my opinion, that you can banish that are just really bad to hit them. So I play it as a 1 of. It's kind of like a 1 of top deck thing that if I run into a bad situation, I can drop it and hopefully get something to help me. We then play 1 copy of Salamangreat Sanctuary. Salamangreat Sanctuary is the 1 of field spell. It's really easily searchable by Baylink, so you just play it as a 1 of, because if you Link Summon a Salamangreat Link monster, you can use 1 Salamangreat Link monster you control as the same name as the entire material. So basically, if, for instance, you have a copy of Heatleo, you can use Heatleo as a material to summon the next Heatleo, so it'll get its effect, because it requires Heatleo to summon Heatleo for its added ability. It also has the ability that if your Link monster battles, you can pay 1,000 life points to target Link monster you control, make it attack 0, and then if you do, gain life points equal to the original attack of that monster, which is pretty good. I like that ability to gain life points, but you really rarely use it. It doesn't come up that much. But a single copy of Salamangreat Sanctuary. This card essentially lets you add any Salamangreat card from your deck to your hand, or target a Salamangreat Link monster you control that was Link summoned using a Salamangreat, or using a monster with the same name as a material, and then that monster is unaffected by monster effects except its own for the rest of the turn. We then play 2 copies of Will of the Salamangreat. Will is absolutely insane. If you ever heard of Soul Charge, this card is basically Soul Charge, because what this card does is, during your main phase, you can special summon a Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard, and then you can send this card from your field to the graveyard, and then target a Salamangreat Link monster you control with a Link summoned using a monster with the same name as materials, and special summon Salamangreat monsters from your hand or graveyard and defense position up to the number of monsters of the Link rating of that monster. So for example, if I have a Heatleo that has been summoned by using Heatleo, and I target it with my copy of Will, then I get to summon 3 Salamangreats from the graveyard. That's ridiculously good, because you're getting so much card advantage off your copy of Will that you're just going to have a lot, and I mean a lot, of advantage. We then play 3 copies of Synapse Mining. Synapse Mining lets you send a card from your hand to the graveyard to add a level 4 or lower Cyverse monster from your deck to your hand. So you play so many searchers in this deck that it's really ridiculous. Like, you play copy of Circle, 3 copies of Synapse Mining, and 3 copies of Lady Debug. So you have like 7 searchers in the entire deck just off right there. So you have plenty of ways to get to the cards you need to as quickly as possible. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps, because we actually play quite a few traps in here. So we're going to go ahead and run straight into our 2 copies of Salamangreat Roar and 2 copies of Salamangreat Rage. So Roar and Rage are really good because they have the ability that Rage lets you send 1 Salamangreat monster from your hand or face it from your field to the graveyard to target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Or you get to target a Salamangreat Link monster you control that was Link summoned using a monster with the same name as a material, and destroy cards your opponent controls up to the Link rating. So again, you target a Heatleo that's been summoned by Heatleo, and you get to target 3 cards on the field and destroy them. That's why I play it as a 2 of. Roar, when a spell trap or card effect or monster effect is activated, when anything's activated, while you control a Salamangreat monster that's a link monster, you can negate the activation if you destroy that card. And then while this card's in the graveyard, if you link summon a Salamangreat monster on your field using a monster with the same name as a material, you can set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So you essentially get a Speed Spell 3 counter trap that can activate twice if you link summon. We then play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence for the last 3 traps, because you just need those extra hand traps just to deal with your opponent's particular cards. It's a really, really, really good way of just flipping this card on your opponent and just stopping a card effect. Or if you get pushed to go second, you can activate this card during the first turn to kind of shut down so you can kind of have a chance to get your board rolling. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So the extra deck is going to play a lot of 3-ups. So here we go. We're going to play 2 copies of Salamangreat Heatleo. Heatleo is the boss monster of the entire deck besides Access Go Talker. So what this card does is if this card is link summon, you can target 1 card on the field or 1 card in your opponent's spell and trap card zone and shuffle it into the deck. Just any card. And then once per turn, during your main phase, if this card was link summoned using a Salamangreat Heatleo as a material, you can target 1 monster on the field and 1 monster in your graveyard, and the attack of the first target becomes equal to the attack of the second target. So for instance, if you have a copy of Balinx in the graveyard and it has 500 attack, you can target the Balinx in your graveyard and a monster your opponent controls, and that monster becomes 500 because Balinx is 500. So it's really good to help you beat over problematic monsters. We then play 3 copies of Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf is really good because it lets you, if you normal summon or special summon to a zone this card points to, then you can add 1 fire monster from your graveyard or hand, but for the rest of the turn, you cannot normal summon or set or special summon monsters with the added monster's name for the rest of the turn. And then during your main phase, if you control this card that was special summoned using a Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf as a material, you can add 1 Salamangreat spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand, which can be your Circle, can be your Will, can be Rage, can be Roar, can be any of the ones that you particularly need. We then play 3 copies of Salamangreat Balinx. Balinx is pretty good. Balinx is probably one of my favorite of all the Salamangreat cards because it's the starter of the deck. That if you link summon into this card, then you get to add a Salamangreat Sanctuary from your deck to your hand. And if a Salamangreat card you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can manage this card from your graveyard instead to protect them. We then play a single copy of Access Go Talker, which is kind of like the hidden boss monster of the entire deck because you play so many different attributes in the deck to be able to pop cards on the field. Transco Talker, because Transco Talker can special summon a Cyverse or a Link 3 or lower Cyverse monster from your graveyard back to your side of the field, which can be your copy of Heatleo, Sunlight Wolf, Balinx, any of the monsters except Access Go Talker in this entire deck, which is really good. Plus it's an Earth target as well. And any monster that is co-linked to this card also has the ability that they gain 500 attack, which is pretty good to be able to just gain the 500 attack, because you always want to summon it in the second row. Like if you have a Sunlight Wolf here, you want to summon the copy of Transcode here, and then have something else pointing to it here, so all 3 of them are gaining 500. We can play a single copy of Fire Charm or Ablaze, because if our opponent summons, or our opponent uses an Ash against us, we can link summon in this and take the Ash out of their graveyard and use this plus the Ash to go into a Heatleo. We play a single copy of Update Jammer, because Update Jammer does have the ability that you have to use level 2 or higher Cyverse monsters to link summon in this card, but once per battle during damage calculation of a Cyverse monster battles, then you can quick effect activate this effect, negate all other monsters on the effects, or all other monsters on the field until the end phase of the damage step. And then during damage calculation for the rest of each monster's original attack and defense of the opponent's monster. And also has the ability that the main effect of this card is if this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material, the link monster can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn that uses cards as material. So for instance, if I use this with access code, I can just boost up the access code to 50, whatever I need to boost it up to, 53, and then use this to be able to attack twice with it to go like 10,600 damage, which is pretty good. One copy of Splash Magician. It's another target because you play Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and a Dark target as well in the extra deck. And what this card does is it basically revives a Cyverse monster from your graveyard, and then you special summon in defense position to negate its effects, which helps you go into Transco Talker really, really easily. Basically for a link 2, you can go into your Transco Talker. One copy of the Angry Karibo. This card negates trap cards, which is pretty good to help you negate Transco, or not, Infinite Impermanence. And plus it's a Transco Talker target with your copy of Dark. So basically, again, Earth, Fire, Water, Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and Dark. And you play plenty of fires to be able to use with this anyways. Then for the last monster we play in the extra deck is a single copy of Abyss Dweller because it can shut down graveyards, and it's still really good and one of the best Link monsters, or one of the best Link monsters, one of the best Xyz monsters in the entire game. So that's it for this deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. Very budget besides the access, which you can play Boral Load if you want to play Boral Load, or a Boral Sword, or whatever you feel like you need in this position. Just a Link 4, except Appaloosa. I don't recommend Appaloosa because it's not going to work with your copy of Update Jammer as well. But if you're wanting to play something in the place of the access code talker, drop the access code and play a copy of Boral Load, because that will help you get your plays rolling a lot faster. And since we finished the deck profile, we're going to go ahead and Tensei summon, or upgrade summon, or whatever you want to call it, reincarnate summon, into our copy of Heat Leo. So we have the different artwork. That's another thing that I really recommend to you guys. If you guys have both artworks, play the different artworks so you know when it's actually summoned, because I use this one when it's not summoned, and I use this one when it's been summoned as its own name, so I can remember. So that's it for this deck, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys. Don't forget to check out the Patreon.